Welcome to the Closet Calvinist Podcast. Some Christians have an inner Calvinist in them and don't even realize it. We will try to bring out the inner Calvinist that may be in you out of the closet. Here is your host, Mike G.
Welcome back to the Closet Calvinist Podcast. This is bonus episode number 9. Now, in this episode, we're tackling one of the most difficult and most attacked doctrines in all of theology. If God is sovereign over all things, then why does evil exist? And more directly, is God the author of sin? Let me be clear right up front. The Bible teaches two truths simultaneously. Number 1, God is absolutely sovereign over everything. And number 2, God is perfectly holy and not the author of sin. If you deny either one, then you've left biblical Christianity. So the question isn't which one is true. The question is, how do they fit together? Well, let's go to Scripture and find out. Scripture does not present a weak or reactive God. It presents a God who ordains whatsoever comes to pass. Isaiah 46 verses 9 and 10 say, I am God, and there is no other, declaring the end from the beginning, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 11 says, Having been predestined according to the purpose of him who works all things according to the counsel of his will. Not some things, not most things, but all things. Proverbs 16 verse 33 says, The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Even what we would call random events falls under his sovereignty. Now here's where people stumble. If God ordains all things, does that make him the author of evil? James 1 verse 13 says, God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. God is not morally corrupt. God does not sin. God does not tempt people to sin. 1 John chapter 1 verse 5 says, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. So we must reject any idea that God is sinful or morally blameworthy. Here is the biblical tension and the biblical answer. God ordains evil events, but he does not commit evil. The clearest example, the cross. Acts chapter 2 verse 23 says, This Jesus, delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, you crucified and killed by the hands of lawless men. There's two truths here. God ordained the crucifixion and men are guilty for carrying it out. Acts chapter 4 verses 27 and 28 says, To do whatever your hand and your plan had predestined to take place. The most evil act in history, the murder of the Son of God, was predestined by God. And yet, God is not guilty. However, the sinners are. Now, this is where Reformed theology is crystal clear. God works through secondary causes, meaning God ordains the event. Creatures carry it out according to their nature. For example, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, it says, As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Same event. Human intentions were evil. Divine intention is good. God is not reacting. He is ruling. Now let's hear what the Reformers had to say. Calvin writes, The will of God is the supreme and primary cause of all things, yet God is not the author of evil. Calvin distinguishes God's decree and man's sinful execution. In The Bondage of the Will, Luther says, God works all in all, even in the ungodly, though in a different manner. God governs even sinful acts, but does not sin. John Owen said, God ordains sin in such a way that, 1, his holiness remains untouched, and 2, the creature bears full responsibility. This is not just a Reformed idea. St. Augustine said, God judged it better to bring good out of evil than to permit no evil to exist. And Justin Martyr affirms human responsibility and divine foreknowledge and sovereignty. Irenaeus teaches evil exists within God's sovereign plan, but does not originate in God's character. Here's the answer Scripture gives. For God's glory, Romans chapter 9, verses 22 and 23. What if God, desiring to show his wrath and to make known his power, in order to make known the riches of his glory for vessels of mercy? Even judgment serves his glory. Even evil is not outside his purpose. So let's answer the big question. Is God the author of evil? Absolutely not. But God ordains all that comes to pass. Evil exists through secondary causes. Humans act according to their sinful nature. God remains perfectly holy, and everything ultimately serves his glory. If you remove God's sovereignty, evil becomes meaningless chaos. If you keep God's sovereignty, evil has a purpose, even if we don't fully understand it. This doctrine is not easy, but it is biblical. God is not wringing his hands in heaven. He is sovereign, holy, just, and purposeful, even over evil. And the greatest proof is the cross, where the worst evil ever committed became the greatest good ever accomplished. Now, if this episode helped you think more clearly about God's sovereignty, please share it. And remember, apologists have nothing to apologize for. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Closet Calvinist Podcast. May God richly bless your life. Grace and peace to you all.
Thank you for listening to the Closet Calvinist Podcast. If you have any questions, then please contact us at our email, mikeg@theclosetcalvinist.com, or visit our website at www.theclosetcalvinist.com.